Do you ever wonder how successful entrepreneurs built their businesses from scratch? Are you unsure if starting a business is for you? Well, tune in as we discuss how successful entrepreneurs transformed their ideas into reality. Welcome back to From Zero to Revenue with your host, Chris Yap.
Welcome to our podcast show, From Zero to Revenue. I'm your host, Chris Yap. This is the show that features the journey of successful entrepreneurs on how they transform their ideas into revenue. Man, I'm super pumped for today's episode.
Thank you, Chris. I'm excited as well.
Man, this is Chad. You're someone I really look up to, just as a human being, as an entrepreneur, just someone who just love life.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
And value adventure of life. Guys, please welcome head coach of Next Level Growth and president of the EO Arizona chapter for this year to 2026.
Yeah.
Chad Nikkel.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Man,
excited.
I'm so happy you're here. I know we've kind of moved around our schedule a few times, but I couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking like, I want to make sure I ask him this and that. That's why, I've got this handy note, right?
Yeah. It's better I don't have the notes. And I'm excited. Like I said before we even started, like having a conversation with you, I'm always excited to have a conversation.
Man,
So
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking last night, where do we start? Because there's so many aspects where we could start, right? But
Yep.
let's do this. So you've ventured into like 11 companies, had 4 successful major exits, and now you're the head coach at Next Level Growth.
Yep.
Give us a little background as to how it all came about. Like, were you always an entrepreneur? How that started? And 11 enterprises, just pretty
for
amazing,
sure.
man.
Well, I think that what that is, that it's actually a sickness more than it is amazing, quite, honestly. I think I learned along the way to sort of hang on to companies a little longer than I did early in. But yeah, I started my first company when I was 15 years old. That was, back in Kansas and that was in the roofing space. And I learned a lot from that company and honestly made a lot of mistakes, like real hard mistakes that, probably left a scar or two. There's a reason my hair is gray, probably. Some of that's from that company. And I unfortunately lost that company in bankruptcy. So really hard lesson in life. But I talk about that as my Harvard education.
Yeah.
So that expense, I could have went to Harvard for, and with no problem. But I learned a lot along the way. But also, I think out of those 11 companies, there's some sort of similarities, right? I really, out of 11 companies, 7 of them have been in the home services space. So pools, windows, concrete, roofing, that kind of thing. And one of the reasons that I'm so bullish, I guess, on that space is that the American economy kind of sort of runs on this backbone of what we spend our most significant money on. And typically that's your home. Whether you own it or you rent it, that is your nest and your space and where your family is and where you feel comfortable, right? And so I think that businesses that support that tend to do better. And that's just sort of been my kind of thing along the way. But.
I'm just curious because obviously, starting one company, it's hard enough. You've done it 11 times. How does your enterprise inception mechanics work? Like, you choose a problem you just want to fix, or opportunity just come to you, and how does that work for you?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking as you said that, like opportunity, I think opportunity isn't, like most cases out of 11 businesses, I can only think of one where the opportunity actually came to me. Most of those were things that I was working toward or found or thought of. I also did 7 acquisitions along the way. So some of those were acquisitions in the same space and rolled them together. I really enjoy buying and selling, like I've sold, like you said, 4 businesses successfully, 2 to private equity. So I understand that space a lot. But in reality, there was no like magic, like, here you go, take this and run kind of thing. I think if that was sort of the question, it was, hey, here's something that I could probably do a little bit better than I see the competition doing. And then sort of having that business and then trying to sort of figure out how to do that business better. I think every business, it doesn't really matter what your business is, but every business has certain things, certain peripherals that the business owner doesn't see, right? And, like coaching sort of is that kind of fulfillment. It's this blind spot, right?
Sure.
And I think when a business owner sort of gets to the point that they sort of improve their business and sort of help those blind spots, then the business sort of like clicks along. We talk about that flywheel effect, right? So it doesn't really matter what the business is. When you determine that flywheel effect, you can really kind of get it to the next level.
As far as childhood goes, family background, did you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or how does, childhood look like, and what kind of influence that played as to what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, the opposite, right? I'm born and raised on a farm. Not that farming isn't entrepreneurial, but my father, very simple family, right? It was me and my brother, both of us adopted, and small house, one kind of bathroom that didn't work all that well. I was really raised in, I don't want to say poverty because we had enough to eat, but we had a single cab Ford pickup truck. We went on vacation, once a year to Colorado with a tent. And we would stop at the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread and some bologna. And I remember thinking back then, like, Dad, can we just eat at McDonald's? But I didn't realize that we couldn't actually afford McDonald's, right? But he was still putting together this like family vacation that we would go out. And so I learned a lot about the school of hard knocks, like what you can do if you're just willing to put yourself out there to do it. And I took that into business too. Like there's a few businesses probably that haven't had, hard times, but they're very few. Businesses are up and down, and getting through those downturns. I think my upbringing, probably helps me through those downturns in business. And as I help other entrepreneurs, that same thing kind of comes through. But yeah, so to sort of like put a bow on that, raised on a farm, no real entrepreneurial background from my parents, and just, kind of sort of saw an opportunity. I was raised very conservative in a sort of an area of the country that like hard work and just, get it done kind of mentality was normal. And, that I sort of like seen an opportunity when I was young and started that business. Most of my friends were out partying. I was writing estimates and meeting customers and trying to get jobs put together. Right. So, I would guess my entrepreneurial thing is probably somehow in my DNA, I guess, some way. Yeah.
And then I would imagine you started young, 15, as an entrepreneur. I'm just wondering, like, how much of I don't know if at that time, like growing up, did you feel like you were missing something? Like, did you really feel like this is kind of close to poverty that kind of prompted you to be an entrepreneur? I mean, was there that influence, I want more? Or was it more of like, there are certain problems I want to fix and,
Yeah, well, maybe a little both of those things, right? So we talk about the Ford pickup truck. We had a 1978 model Ford pickup truck when I was old enough to drive. By the way, in Kansas, you get a driver's license at 13 back in those days, which is way too young. But when I was old enough to drive, it would start about half the time, right? So it would go out to go wherever, it would start about half the time. And I had this like moment of like, when I can afford to buy a new pickup, I will always have a vehicle that starts, right? So that was sort of like early on in my teenage years. It was a little bit of a driving force. It was like, go to work, build this business so you can have a pickup truck that you really like. And, I made a lot of financial mistakes early in life. And some of those were trading that darn pickup truck every year, you would roll it into the next, right? But that was a little bit of a driving force, right? It was like, not to go back, right? I'm building this business, I'm building this life to get a return on life and not go back. I'm not going back to this like life of the pickup wasn't going to start, right? So it seems kind of like maybe petty looking back, but that was a bit of a driver back then for me.
Well, it is, and it kind of, I can relate to it as far as, when you're building something, it's easier to see what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, like, when I got married, we had no car, barely making it.
Yeah.
And then I remember when I had to take Gabby, my eldest, to the doctor, we had to get a cab. And
Yeah.
it's so hard. Like, we have to be on the street like 20, 30 minutes just waiting for a cab to get to a
To get to
doctor's
the doctor.
appointment. And I said, this sucks.
Yeah.
And so building the company is like, that's definitely one thing. So I have a list of like never agains.
Right. Yeah.
That's in my list.
That's your list.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's important to have that kind of never again. So it's a powerful motivation to
It is.
continue doing what you're doing, especially when it gets tough.
For sure.
Chad, you've built 11 companies, exited 4 times. You can pretty much retire right now, but you still decided to do the selfless thing of coaching, because you don't really need to be doing that as far as money goes, right? But so I'm assuming that's coming out of a specific purpose. If you can share with us, like, what made you decide to do coaching instead of just traveling? I mean, you travel a lot.
Yeah. I enjoy travel.
But aside from that, you're still coaching, because I know it's not for the money. I mean, what's the purpose behind it? What's that burning desire to help others?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of reasons. I would say I really do enjoy coaching. I close the door to the coaching center or whatever for the day, and we sort of do our coaching in sprints, right? And we spend 6-7 hours with a company, and man, that day just goes by quick, because we get in and help that entrepreneur and that leadership team really like find the key things that they need to get to that next level. And it just goes by so easily for me. So I really enjoy that aspect of business. I think out of the 11 companies, the part that I really liked was building the business. When the business was clicking along, I said that maybe earlier in our recording, but I sold businesses too quick because I would sort of like, it's doing fine now. It no longer like doesn't fill me. So that coaching aspect sort of fills that for me. But I think one of my key things, and you might have heard me talk about this before, but this is the return on life, right? So as an entrepreneur, you work 60, 80 hours a week, whatever, you're missing your kid's soccer game, like whatever the things are, you're doing all of this for something, right? And the problem is entrepreneurs, like you look back and 20 years went by and you're not sure what that thing is. It changes. It keeps going into the future. And I really believe that all of this is for a return on life. And return on life for you it's not necessarily money. Maybe it's time with your family. Maybe it's, hey, look, I want to take 2 vacations to Europe a year or whatever that is. That return on life. So your business will actually do better when you have time to do those things, if we get it organized and set up well. So me as a coach, that's sort of my driving factor. It's like, if I can help you, the entrepreneur, get that return on life, whatever that looks like for you, get the business organized in a fashion so that you don't have to be constantly worried about it 70 hours a week. You look back and you're like, man, I'm 20 hours a week in my business and it's doing better than it was before when I was 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I can go to every kid's soccer game. I've got a client that, it was like, look, I want to make every basketball game for my kid. That's my goal next year. And by the end of that year, we had him in a spot that he was never going to miss another one. His wife was very excited about that, right? So that aspect is different for everyone. But for me, it still boils down to that return on life thing. And so what I can do as a coach to help an entrepreneur get to that, that's very fulfilling for me.
Man, I love that return on life. But Chad, the great thing about you as a coach, a business coach, is that you've actually built companies, successfully exited. So it's not like you're coaching out of your interpretation from books.
Yeah.
You actually walk the talk the walk, which is, I think it's very important. It's like, it's hard to learn how to sing from an instructor who's not even singing or hasn't sung. But with you, I'm sure you've had, a myriad of learnings with your own companies. And now with next level growth, I saw the structure, the principles behind it, and it's pretty amazing. Give us some background as to why your clients are choosing you and next level growth compared to others, because you've got quite a bit of competition as well.
Yeah,
But
there's
give
lots
us-
of
yeah.
lots of coaches out there, right?
Exactly.
Why should you choose us,
Yeah.
or why should you choose me specifically? I think my aspect on the been there, done that kind of aspect. So we're going to get in the weeds with you, right? So you want to hire a coach that's not just theory.
Mm-hmm.
So not just what the book says, right? There's plenty of those people. So out of
Right.
those 11 businesses, 7 of those went past $10 million in annual revenue.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them over $25 million in revenue, and my largest one to $47 million in revenue.
Wow.
125 employees, 300 contractors every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of experience there,
Mhm.
and probably experienced a lot of the things that an entrepreneur that might hire me is experiencing, right?
Mhm.
And one of my I have a really good client that's an $85 million agricultural construction company, right? So really solid, same kinds of things.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between just understanding a book, you mentioned that, and sort of teaching theory, or being able to sort of see potentially the things that the entrepreneur is missing, right?
Mhm.
I use the boxer analogy. So the boxer, the bell rings, the boxer comes back to the corner, and the trainer like wipes his eyebrow.
Mhm.
And he says, hey, the guy's like dragging his left foot before he throws the right hook, right? Boxer doesn't see that because he's just trying not to die out there, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And he's trying to get killed. So now he goes back out there and he sees it and he ducks and he throws the left hook and knocks him out. So it's my job as the coach, the guide, to help you see the corners, right? To see the peripherals. And the only way I think a coach can really do that well is if they've been there, if they walk the walk. All of the coaches in the next level growth firm have had YPO qualifying businesses or better, right?
Which is revenue wise.
Is revenue of over $10 million and significant employees, right? So there's not a single guide in our portfolio that doesn't meet that requirement. And I think that aspect of, from an entrepreneur's perspective, when you hire someone that fulfills that and something comes up, you can go to your guide, your coach, and just say, hey, look, this is what I'm experiencing. They probably have experienced it before. It's not, hey, I'm going to pull out the book or the tool and let me see what I can find for you. It's like, hey, look, I can help you with that today.
Chad, what's amazing about that is, so you've got that acumen on the business side, and you're very articulate as far as communicating your thoughts, your experience into words, into such layman terms. And the other thing that I find really admirable in you is just your leadership skills.
Thank you.
You're very good in getting shit done. I've experienced it for everyone's knowledge here. I was in the same forum with Chad, with EO, and man, your command to get things done on time with precision is just really next level.
Thank you.
And what's great about it too is you're not an asshole. You have that command to get things done and make people follow. And I think what's unique about you, Chad, is not only are you great with business, is just really on the human being level. You're a top-notch human being, man. I mean, the way you demonstrate your love for life, like we discussed earlier, you travel a lot. Dude, you pilot your own plane, and then you do some crazy things that's it's just a love of life. And you have a great relationship with your son, Zach, right?
Zach, that's right, yep.
So it's like, that is so admirable, because usually when you meet a successful business owner, there's so much imbalance. It's just either one or the other.
Yeah.
But with you, you have a great relationship with April, and you're very well respected in our business community. Obviously, you wouldn't be president of VO if you're not. But how did that come about, man? Like, is there a formula to that? Because I think it's important for your clients and the coaching clients not just to understand your superiority and talent as a business coach, but on the human level, there has to be a genuine connection, because otherwise it's going to be transactional.
Yep.
And I don't think that's ever going to work.
Yep.
But how did that come about with you? Like, was that intentional, or I don't know, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, I think when I was younger, I had this sort of drive because of things. And along the way, I learned that it wasn't things, it was actually people, right? You know, the fancy car and the fancy, that wasn't important. It was actually the people. We're building a business because it's supporting the people, and that people can be your customers or your people and your staff. But one of the things that I think entrepreneurs miss sometimes is that leadership teams, great leaders make great leaders. So it's not, this is how you get this done, or this is the action we take. It's the leader's job to make great leaders. Your team, the people that you know go out and get shit done for you, those leaders, it's your job to make great leaders. And when I have a leader that takes that responsibility full on and really sort of leans into that, you know, the change is dramatic, right? And that you can just see the leadership team sort of like take this collective breath of like, man, we're going to go out there and we're going to kill it now, right? It's so different. And I really, really believe in that. And then as it comes to life, like life is short, man. You know, my parents have both passed away, and we're only here for the time we're here. And in that time, like, you know, people, it's free to be kind. It doesn't cost you any money to be a good human being, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if that's in business, if that's with the other people, the barista at Starbucks, it doesn't cost anything to be kind. And I see leaders that are, you know, not maybe that way with their staff or whatever. And I'm like, you want to know why there's a revolving door in your company? You know, there's the reason. So,
Right. No, man, I love that. And yeah, it's that's why I'm really excited to have you here, because like I've had a lot of, well, most of the guests I've had here, obviously they're all entrepreneurs, but they tell me like they started it because they want the freedom. But they're still stuck working, you know, 40, 60 hours a week. And then they're losing people here and there. And I think the kindness is a major factor there. That's, man, I'm excited for you. And then I know we're doing the show, but before the show we were talking about potential joint venture. My mind is just running right now about it. I mean, to have that opportunity to work with you on Answer Care is just pretty, I feel like just the thought of a potential is like, it just excites me. So that's kind of sidetracked a little bit, but
no, all good.
That's exciting. Business coaching it's been a thing for a few decades now, right? But I think it got into mainstream probably in the last 10 years, maybe. What do you think shifted? Because there's a huge demand for you, for a business coach. What do you think shifted just in the last decade or so?
Well, I think there was a sort of the start of a realization that, like, you think about athletes. Athletes don't have one coach. They have a strength coach, and they have a, you know, mind coach, and they have, you know what I mean? Like, they're multiple different. The way an athlete becomes successful is they have all of these other, you know, sort of modalities covered. And I think business owners have started to realize that, right? You know, so and you know, multiple business owners have multiple coaches, right? They might have a leadership team coach, somebody similar to myself, and then they might still have a personal, like, you know, coach on the side, right? So there's other sort of ways to look at that. And then I think what happened along the way is that lots of people that sort of fit that space, that kind of coaching space, that sort of maybe had similar mentality to me, said, well, I could do that, right? And so we seen that pop up along the way. But the negative side of that was that certain coaching systems became very like structured and out of the box. This is how it is, right? So it's like, you give us the fee, you pay us the $50,000 and the monthly fee or whatever it is, and you're magically this coach when you didn't really have any qualifications. And now we have this sort of system that you have to sort of cram the business into, right? It's like this business is a round peg, but we're putting it into a square box. And I think that might be something that we at Next Level Growth have done differently, was like whatever, we have a whole like process. I have an audition next week with a company out of Tucson, and that company really doesn't fit the, square peg, round hole scenario, right? So in the standard coaching profile, they won't fit, right? And we sort of take our system and kind of mold it to that company. And I think that is a little bit the difference, right? So there's lots of coaches, but they sort of, too many of these kind of round, square peg, round hole sort of scenarios, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And I think too, this idea of finding that freedom while growing a business, I think the concept before was it's an accepted fact that there will be an imbalance.
Yeah.
But I think lately we've seen successful entrepreneurs have that balance of doing both.
Yep.
Obviously, there will be moments in their lifetime where there's just not going to be balance, especially when you're starting. But I feel like when you're on your fifth year,
Yep.
I mean, you're still a startup, but not really, and you're still stuck in there, I feel like something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this just because I'm on my 8th year and, I have an amazing team, but I was able to do that because of a lot of coaching, a lot of learning from, not just from a coach, but from peers.
Yep.
But what do you think are like the main reasons, like, in dealing with your clients today? What are like maybe top reasons why companies are still stuck in or stuck plateaued in a specific growth phase, and they're still grinding freaking 60 hours a week? Why do you think that's happening?
Quite often it's maybe one or two people in the leadership team, maybe the owner, maybe somebody in there that's sort of bottlenecking the process, right? They're like the choke point. And what you find, and so some of that is accountability chart, right? At Next Level Growth, we don't believe in a org chart. We believe in an accountability chart, right? We talk about the 5 obsessions and the most critical outcome of every position. Every position in your business has a most critical outcome. You don't need 29 things on a job description. You need a most critical outcome and maybe 5 obsessions for that one seat. And then it operates efficiently and cleanly. But one of the things that we have multiple kind of things that we coach on, but I sort of talk about this inspiring purpose, right? That inspiring purpose isn't save the world. The inspiring purpose is what the business does from a core values perspective. So what that inside of that business feels like, right? And I talk to leadership teams about core values and how those things look like. And one of the things as we establish core values and that inspiring purpose is this idea of being a good parent, right? So if you're a good parent, you don't tell your kid to say or to do something just because Chris said so. Like, oh, I don't want to do that, Dad. Well, Dad said so, you should do it. If you're not willing to do it as the dad, why are you asking your kid to do it, right? And the same thing applies to the leadership team, right? It's be a good parent. No core values should be on the list if the leadership team is not 100% willing to do it. So that core value should not be there. Be a good parent. So act that way. And it doesn't mean that, this idea of made bed, right? When you go to a hotel, the beds you assume is made when you check in, right? I talk to a lot of contracting companies because that's sort of my space in a lot of my clients. But, they're like, oh, we do quality work. Well, why would I hire you if you weren't going to do quality work? That's not a core value.
That's given.
We do quality work is not a core value. So that sort of good parent scenario is really, really important. And I find a lot of times inspiring purpose and that sort of choke point by someone in the leadership team is holding people back. So sort of setting that operating system in the business to operate that way to sort of eliminate those things. And then all of a sudden it sort of clicks forward, and then we can really start to have fun after that.
Man, that is so cool. So when you get a client, Chad, say, because you have this process of auditioning, like you
Yep.
mentioned earlier, and then say it's done, contract signed and whatnot. What's the first thing you look into the company? I'm sure you're doing assessments
Yep.
and whatnot. Is it people, process, technology? Is it financials? What are like the first few things that you look into when you do a deep dive with a new client?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's all those things. But first of all, no contracts. We do everything month to month. I want you excited to see me, all the time, right?
Perfect.
So nobody's ever under any contract. But our process, the way I work is, have a call, a coffee, no obligation at all. See if I can help you in some way. Hop on a Zoom with you, whatever the case might be, and then see if there's sort of a fit to go to the audition level. And the audition is about a 90-minute. Let's dive into what we do as a company and what you do as a company, and see if there's a fit. Frankly, like I turned 50 in just a few weeks. I don't want to spend time with people I don't want to spend time with anymore in my life. So that's as much for me as it is for you, right? Like I want you to be like, hey, look, I'm excited for Chad to be my coach, but sometimes somebody's just not a fit. Like the personality isn't going to jibe. I'm, just frankly, I've worked in sort of blue collar industries, right? So, my sort of style is a little bit that way, right? So I want to make sure that we're both a solid fit in that. And then from there, we sort of jump into this, what we call base camp, right? So the first start of this process was base camp. And from there, we're going to really dive into the company. What does the accountability chart look like? What is the, what are your purpose? Like, what are your core values? And we might even do the full core value exercise and see if those are all really ringing true. And then along the way, we talk about playbooks, right? Like what playbooks do we have? And how, if we want to take your business from, Phoenix, let's say, and take it to Tucson, or to, Denver or whatever that is, can we just take it and plug it in there, right? Can we get it ready for that? And so that's sort of the process, if you will. And then from that base camp, that's usually several days, depending on, what your company looks like. And from there, we sort of go to a quarterly, kind of schedule. I also do one-on-one CEO coaching. So as a client of mine, that's all included in the package. So in between, I have a call once a month with you. And sometimes that's an accountability thing, right? That's I had a client today, and they said 2 months ago, they said, hey, we're going to roll this thing out. And here we are 60 days later, they're still in analysis paralysis about it. So we sort of had a, genuine talk about that, right? Like, hey man, let's get going on that, right? So some of that, there's a little bit of accountability value. Now, you're my client. You can say, hey, I don't want to talk about that. That's fine. That's fine. But it's my job as a coach to sort of bring it up.
And I think it's really critical to have that clear understanding, right, on expectations and whatnot. Because I could imagine a scenario where, a client could hire you and help me fix this and that. But I think you touch on a critical component there of accountability. Like, you're not going to be fixing these problems for them. You're like a Sherpa. You're guiding, showing, not just based on your experience, but, you've got principles, concepts within next level growth that you help implement. But I think the critical part there is the participation of the client, because otherwise it's not going to work. So I guess I wanted to say this to our audience, that hiring a coach doesn't mean that the coach is going to fix the problems for you. You got to put in the work. And I think it's just important to set that expectation.
For sure. We have lots of, connections and contacts and, things to help, people get stuff done. But you're right. I do get in the weeds with you, right? I'll spend as much time as you need, but I'm not going to write the stuff, I'll help you get to the right place.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure.
Now, just touching back a bit on, we discussed a little earlier, you mentioned it, I mentioned it, that, still a lot of entrepreneurs, fifth, sixth, even 10th year and still working 60 hours a week and whatnot. And you mentioned that a lot of it is the problems tied to the owner. Um, but for companies who are hyper growth or growing companies, how critical is to have that like integrator type, like COO person, like implementing? Because
Yeah.
as owners, we're the visionaries, right?
Yeah.
How important is it to have that person who can execute with you, not really for you, but with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly that's like number one, right? You need a team that can execute, right? And your business at GabTech, right? You're helping build a team of executors, right? That's really
Right.
what we're doing,
Right.
So that's so important, right? It's like just because we have a vision or we have an idea or we have this is where we're going, we have to have that sort of execution. Now, the integrator, from a perspective, it depends on the business, right? Like some businesses, it's different. But I will tell you that operations in general, somebody that's really good in that seat makes all the difference in the world, right? There's this whole adage of sales fixes everything, right? Well, there's a little difference in that. Sales fixes things from a perspective it brings in revenue, but if we don't have the operations correct, none of that's falling to the bottom line, right? So the operations adds to the bottom line. Sales fixes from a perspective of adds revenue, but it can also magnify the mistakes, right? So now let's say a business is doing $15, $20 million in revenue. They've got a lot of good sales coming on, but we've got a lot of mistakes happening below that line, the operations, because the COO or the second in command isn't doing their job correctly, and the money isn't falling to EBITDA, right? So it's really, really important that second in command is or that operator or integrator you talk about is really doing their job.
So in your coaching, I'm guessing that's included, like as far as assessing whether one, they need that person. Well, it looks like any company would need that. But most importantly, if they have that person in that role, do you also help assess if that person's actually the right person or not?
Yeah, personality, right person, right seat is really important, and especially in that integrator role, because that integrator role, there's like super key points in personalities that work well in that integrator role, right? The same reason people make this mistake all the time with sales teams, right? They're like, the best sales guy, that salesperson, we're going to promote him to sales manager. And he's a terrible sales manager. He's really good at selling, but he's terrible at managing people. So that aspect of that integrator role, having that right person, right seat, isn't just that role. It's other people. And frankly, it's the employees being happy in that role. You might have an employee in a specific role in their company that is functioning but not happy, and then they leave, right? And they left because they were sort of forced to do a role. So right person, right seat isn't just that integrator or sort of key things. It's like, let's make sure the team is actually functioning. When I come in, I'm not looking to fire people. We want people in the right person, right seat, so that they're happy, and the business then just clicks forward and just clicks along, right? That sort of operating system we talk about in the business, part of that is putting the right people in the right seats, and they're going to produce well for you now. They're not just doing that role because they didn't want to tell you no when you said, hey, I need to promote you to, COO, right? And they're like, I'm really better at, finance or whatever, right?
So it's really that people optimization.
It is 100%. It's the optimization of people. And, look at your business is the same thing. Like, you're putting that person in a role to support the other part of the business, right? So it's a very key. You know this. It's a very key.
No, 100%. For business owners who are maybe on the fence, they think that they need to get a coach, but they haven't hired a coach.
Yep.
What's your message to them as to why they should not just get a coach, but hire you?
Yeah, there's no one message, honestly. And what's the reason you haven't done it? A lot of times it's money, right? And I will tell you that I'm the cheapest person you're going to hire. You know, I'm cheaper than a fully burdened manager by any stretch of the imagination. And hiring me, you've got 35 years of entrepreneurial experience and 11 businesses and, you know, all the things we talked about at the start of the show, for a fraction of what that would cost if you were to hire me, you know, on. But really the process is, let's just talk about it, right?
Yeah.
You know, none of that costs any money,
Yeah.
right? I don't charge for any assessments. I'm not a firm that's going to come in and charge you to assess your company. I'm like, let's just talk about it. And in some cases I do free like evaluations, like real evaluations that people charge $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 for up front, because I want to make sure that I'm going to add value. What I add is exponential value. And if I'm not adding exponential value, you should fire me.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we don't have contracts. I don't want you to be like, oh man, we have a simple 30-day cancellation. That's it. Right? No problem. If it's not a fit for you, it's not a fit for me either. Right? Like, let's be honest. And so that aspect is just super, like, I want you high-fiving me every day, saying at the end of the year, looking back and saying we exponentially made money on what Chad's fee was. That's a win for everyone.
So, Chad, for our audience who want to learn more about you,
Yep.
want to learn more about your process and whatnot, what's the best way for our audience to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, a couple ways. You know, LinkedIn obviously is a great way to learn more about me. My full name, Chad Nikkel, Nikkel, and then. But the easiest way is go to Next Level Growth's website, nextlevelgrowth.com. My stuff is nextlevelgrowth.com/Chad Nikkel. But you know, take a look there. We have a free business assessment sort of thing. It's I want to say it's 80 questions long, but it's you just kind of go through and click and see where you're at, and we'll do this like business sort of assessment tool for free for you. And you know, you don't have to hire us for that at all. I'm just happy to send it to you. I'll hop on a call with anyone, and I love just chatting business, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned EO Arizona. I've been, you know, I'm president. I'm co-chair of our regional event coming up, and I'm also on the Global Learning Committee now. So like all of EO globally, which is a 20,000 plus member organization, I've agreed to serve on that committee for 2 years. So I love entrepreneurism. I love business, and I probably have a connection that can help you in some way.
Yeah, no, I'm
you
sure.
know what I mean? So I'm happy just to hop on a call and talk about anything in business with anyone. So.
Well, Chad, before I let you go, is there a book that you can recommend, you know, entrepreneurs who want to grow but not let go of their freedom? Because that's the usual battle among entrepreneurs. They think it's one or the other. I know there's a book that you would like to recommend.
Yeah, 5 Obsessions of Elite Organizations. That's our book there on the table. You know,
It's right here, guys.
Yep. Happy to send that to anyone for free. Just, you know, hit me up and I'll send you a copy. It really sort of goes into what we think, you know, an elite organization, you know, really some fundamentals that you need. You don't have to hire me to get it. You know, just I'm happy to send it. I definitely recommend this. Michael Urath, our founder, wrote it recently. It's a great book. And then just, let's have a chat.
Man, I am super blessed to have you here in our show, Chad. Thanks again for being with us here today.
Well, Chris, thanks so much for having me. Like, I genuinely, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with you where I was like, I didn't leave the conversation saying, man, that was cool. I love having a conversation with Chris. So,
oh man, that
means a lot for me to have you on your show.
Well, that means a lot to me hearing that from you.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Well, that concludes our show today. What an amazing episode today, man. I really appreciate you I know you're busy, but you know, making time for us here today.
Absolutely.
So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this is your host, Chris Yap of the show From Zero to Revenue. Until next time.